Hello.
All right, guys, welcome to this week's recovery sub-team meeting. I know it was supposed to be yesterday, but I couldn't make it yesterday. I wasn't prepared, and I really wanted to make sure I had a good presentation for this week. So, yeah, sorry about that. Oh, I'm not even sharing my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Cool, nice. All right. Uh, all right. So let's give a quick overview of this week's presentation. So we're going to go over what we talked about last week, the member responsibilities and sub-team delegates. Then we're going to talk about senior and senior design. We're going to go over the calendar. Um, some research that I would like you guys to do over some possible mechanisms for ejection. Then we're going to go over some guidelines for the proposed design. On the calendar, I'll go over when I would like us to present our designs. So I think it's in like 2 weeks. And then I'm just gonna talk about like the detail that we should have, some of the constraints we should be aware of for the possible designs. And then lastly, we're gonna go over some possible hardware that we can use for the new recovery system. So let's get started. Okay, so from last week, whenever I brought up the two possible designs for member responsibilities, there was a lot of good feedback on the specification model. So that's what we're gonna go with. So I thought about three possible specifications. One that those being separation mechanisms, descent, and integration. And here are like a couple of the tasks those different roles would specify in. So like separation force, redundancy, for descent rates, parachutes, cords and links, and then for integration, cables and terminals. I was hoping everybody would be here so we could talk about who wants what, but I guess I'll just assign it later in the week, or I'll send a message on Discord and see what you guys want. But let's see the next slide. So the responsibilities for each of these would be documenting relevant information, research into principles and components for those different specifications, and validation of design based on research, physics, and software. I would like to have a layout for all the different responsibilities here, just so we're all familiar with uh, the paperwork. And even though we're having specifications, I think it's still important that we all participate in the overall design for recovery, even if it's not like something you're specifying on or specific or whatever. You guys understand what I'm trying to say. Um, it's just that specifications help spread out the load, and I feel like we gain more knowledge if we specify into different aspects, and then we can come together and discuss, the overall design. By the way, feel free to stop me and ask questions. Um, yeah. So sub-team delegates, again, I wrote Garrett twice here, but these are like the delegates who would like each of the members to be uh, like their primary contact force. So for structures, Alan would reach out to structures anytime we need something, or just to maintain regular contact really. Avionics, Titus, analysis. Uh, I think this was supposed to be Garrett, and then propulsion was supposed to be Chang. I just wrote Garrett twice for some reason, but yeah, just I guess for this week, it would be nice if you guys just reached out to each of your sub team and just introduce yourself and say, hey, if you ever need something from recovery or you need to contact recovery for some reason, feel free to like reach out to me. This way, the communication is not just on one person, it's spread through the team and it's more efficient. And then let's move on to CNIF design for this week. So the first thing is that I worked on a calendar that we can use for the sub team. The link is right here. Uh, I'll send it in the Discord because a lot of you guys are missing for this meeting. Um, but yeah, the purpose of this is for members to be aware of the things that need to be done well ahead of time. I think having a deadline really helps. Um, Putting it in your head that you need to be working on something, because if you don't, you kind of just put it off until it's kind of too late. And I just made this calendar, so it will definitely require feedback from people and like a couple of iterations before we find something that really works for everyone. So you can always reach out to me and give me some feedback on the calendar or anything else really. Next, ejection mechanisms. So first of all, I've tried to do some research on my own into possible ejection mechanisms, and it's really hard to find one that's like really detailed and that would meet all of our constraints. So in a little bit, I'll go over some research phrases that I would like everyone to look over and see what they can find. But just some general guidelines for the design. Number one, simpler is better. Really, the more simple you can make something, the less of a chance you have something is going to go wrong. If you make something really complex, then if something goes wrong, it's really hard to pin down what exactly went wrong. So I think that's probably the most important thing. Um, Another thing is lack of experience. So far, we're really familiar with black powder. I know there's like a CO2 ejection charges and all of that, but black powder is something we're really familiar with. But obviously, I'm not saying just limit yourself to black powder, but just keep in mind that something unfamiliar might not be the easiest. And then bang per buck. So just because you think a design might be a good solution doesn't mean that it's worth the extra time and effort, especially when you know that something simpler might work. So keep these in mind for your designs. Here are some research topics that I thought would be really helpful for your designs. So stage separation, mechanical separation, two-stage rockets, serial staging, parallel staging, gas ejection, CO2 ejection systems. All of these, they might not like show like a design that we can actually use for Zenith, but they can help you come up with your own design that might actually work. Next section here is actually I didn't click on the calendar link, but I would like us to have like a presentation over each of our designs in 2 weeks from now, I think. Maybe at the end of the presentation, I'll click on it so we can make sure, but here's some of the guidelines I would like all of us to have for our design. So for now, we're focusing on the ejection system, like the cords, the parachutes, all of that. I feel like that is probably best to wait when we know more about the rocket itself. For now, we're just worried about how we're actually going to separate the rocket. Make sure that, whatever you design has sufficient force for separation. Don't make something that's only going to have like 20 pounds of force. COTS is easier to implement. SRAD takes a lot of work. So if you can find like a kit or something that you can use, just go for that for now. Limited space, 4 inches is the diameter we're shooting for. So that's a really small space. And keep in mind that you have to have a redundant system. So make sure that 2 of whatever you're using will fit within 4 inches. Reduce weight as much as possible. And for the actual drawings or whatever, paper drawings are fine. Just make sure that there's multiple views, big enough to see all necessary details, and make sure that you have an explanation for it. It's really hard to understand like a engineering drawing if you don't have any explanations. And lastly, CAD would be nice, but it's not mandatory for now. Whenever we get closer to the presentation date, I'll probably, or actually next week, I plan to give my own presentation over my design. so you guys know what is expected. So yeah. And then last section here is hardware. I just wanted to introduce a couple more hardware that we could probably use for a recovery system. So the first one is the Piranha line cutter. I know last week we talked about line cutters, and I said that they're typically used for smaller rockets. This one here you can actually use for high power rocketry, and it works the same as the smaller ones, which is just to keep the main parachute shut and use that as a drogue. And then once you want to actually open up your main parachute, this works with black powder, and it just cuts the zip tie, and then the main parachute opens up. So there's this here. It relies on black powder, so you're gonna need an E-match, which in my opinion, there's kind of a drawback that this has to be connected to a terminal while it's like flopping in the air. So keep that in mind. And then another hardware that I found was the Eagle CO2 ejection system. This one I think is pretty cool. It works with a spring and a, what's it called here? A puncture piston. So it uses like a sealed black powder canister, and once you trigger it with an E-match, it punctures the CO2 canister, which then expands, and you can separate the rocket. It's really expensive. I think it's like $265, and it's kind of really bulky. So I'm not 100% sure that we could fit two of these in Zenith. But I have a couple more pictures here. I don't know if this is something that we could actually use, but I feel like for future development is something that could be used. Like we could definitely in the future try and make one of these here where it's a spring here. And you can see here where the black powder goes. So once you ignite the black powder, it sends this puncture here flying into the CO2 canister, and then the gas is able to escape, and you pressurize the the rocket, and then you hopefully successfully separate the rocket. So that's it for this week's meeting. Do you guys have any questions so far? I feel like I just said so many things.
Hey, Carlos, how do you want to go about presenting our ideas and stuff? Do you want to all do it on one meeting, or how do you want to do it?
Well, I on the calendar, I split it in 2 weeks because I feel like, we should give everyone time to talk about their design, but I also don't want to have like a 3-hour meeting. So I split it into 2 weeks. I would like for us to have it in person, and like we each present our idea, right? And then at the end, we talk about how it meets our phase one's constraints, and we just, like talk about it and see what's good about it and what's not so good that needs to be improved about it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you think you could share the link to that Google Calendar?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hold on. Oh, I didn't put it here. Hold on, let me. I'll send it on the Discord on the recovery channel.
That's great.
Okay, I can actually show you guys right here too. It's really basic for now, but as you guys can see, I just put how I split the remaining time we have into the PDR. So I guess for until August 8, yeah, we'll have the brainstorming phase, right? So this whole time we'll be going over the signs. and talking about them. And then hopefully by August 8th, we actually pick one or two designs that we want to look further into, and then use like those 2 weeks to really get into those designs, making sure we're meeting the constraints and all the requirements. And then I would like for us to have like a week and a half before the PDR to actually make sure that our design is really good. And we don't have a set date for the PDR yet, right?
No.
Okay, so is this a good estimate, September 1st?
Yeah, I'd say either
I
that
think
or the
a
following
week or two after.
Okay, so that gives us even more time. Yeah, so this is hopefully how things go. And as you can see here, I guess August 1st would be our first brainstorming presentation. And then a week after that, we will have another one.
Yeah. Also, since I guess we're starting on the 23rd, and we'd probably be working on recruiting a lot more members those next 2 to 3 weeks. Maybe like after that heavy like design phase, or like where
Mhm.
you're the yellow bit, try to plan in some time to try to like on ramp the new members, like teach them about
Okay,
recovery, all the things they might want to know.
okay.
and,
Yeah, I was thinking about making like a recovery introductory presentation.
Perfect.
Anything else? All right, in that case, I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Wait,
Thank you,
I had a
guys.
question. Wait, hold up. I had a question.
Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Have you talked to Avionics yet about the single bay dual deployment system?
No, not yet.
Are you gonna wait until you assign the roles for that?
Yeah, I feel like that's a good exercise for whoever's in avionics to just talk to
All
them
right.
about that.
Cool.
Are the slides from previous meetings up anywhere?
Yeah, I put them up in the recovery folder. I made a meeting folder and they're all in there.
Okay, I guess I couldn't see it earlier.
Yeah, I uploaded them like 10 minutes before the meeting because I had them in my personal drive.
That explains it then. Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Any final questions, concerns, feedback?
I think it was a great presentation.
Thank you. All right. In that case, I'll end the meeting now. Thank you guys for showing up, and I'll see you guys around.
Take care.
Mhm.
Bye.